The station was quiet. Too quiet. Metal corridors stretched into darkness, dust floating in the cold air. A solitary man walked through the narrow passage, his boots echoing on the steel floor. He carried a small lamp, its weak light pushing. Against the shadows, this station was old, forgotten and abandoned by most travelers. But he lived here, far away from crowded colonies and noisy trade routes. He had no family, no friends, no one who would notice if he disappeared tomorrow. Every day was the same. Wake up, eat dry rations, check the systems, then walk the empty halls. He told himself he liked the silence. No one to judge him, no one to ask questions about his past. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, the silence felt heavy. Sometimes he wished for a voice, any voice, to break the emptiness. Still, he stayed, because loneliness was easier than trust. Trust had cost him too much in the past. That evening, as he checked an old power relay, he froze. A sound, soft, broken, and almost lost in the hum of the machines, reached his ears. It was not the usual creak of metal or the hiss of old pipes. It was a cry, faint and trembling. His heart jumped, because this station had no visitors, no neighbors, nothing alive. For a moment he thought he imagined it. But then it came again, a weak whimper, almost like a child in pain. The man gripped his lamp tighter and followed the sound, step by step. He walked down a forgotten corridor where the lights flickered. The air was colder there, the walls wet from leaking pipes. At the end of the hallway lay a storage bay he had not opened in months. The sound came from inside. His chest tightened, as fear and curiosity fought inside him. He should turn back, he told himself. Whatever was inside was not his problem. But his feet moved forward anyway. He pushed the heavy door, and it groaned open. The light from his lamp spread across the dusty floor. At first he saw only broken crates and tangled wires. Then, in the corner, his eyes locked on a figure. A body lay crumpled, small and fragile, skin pale and glowing faintly under the lamp's light. Not human. Her skin had a purple shimmer, her hair thin and silver like threads of light. She was breathing, but barely. The man's breath caught. He had seen aliens before in crowded markets and trade posts, but never here, never in his private exile. He stepped closer, his lamp shaking. In his hand, her chest rose and fell in painful gasps. A dark wound stretched across her side, blood seeping into her torn clothing. Her lips moved, whispering words in a language he did not know. Her eyes fluttered open, weak but filled with terror. For a second they met his eyes, and in that second he understood she was asking for help. The man's mind raced. He should walk away, pretend he never saw her. If someone had left her here, then danger was close. Hunters, slavers, or worse could be searching for her. He had survived this long by avoiding trouble, but as he turned to leave, her hand moved. Shaking, fragile fingers reached toward him. Her eyes locked on his, and even without words, the message was clear. Please don't leave me. He felt something inside, something he had buried long ago, a memory of another time, another face. He shook his head, forcing it away. This is not my fight, he whispered to himself. But his legs did not move. Instead, he crouched down beside her. Her skin was cold, her pulse weak. She would die here if he walked away. And somehow the thought of being alone again in this endless silence felt worse than danger. He pulled a small scanner from his belt. The device beeped weakly, struggling to read her alien biology. Numbers flashed. Low oxygen, failing heart, dropping temperature. She was slipping away. The man cursed under his breath. He didn't have the right tools. He didn't even know if human medicine could save her. But he couldn't just stand and watch her die. Lifting her carefully, he felt how light she was, almost weightless in his arms. Her head rested against his chest, her breath shallow. He carried her out of the storage bay, back into the flickering corridors. Every step echoed louder than before. Every shadow seemed to move. He felt like unseen eyes were watching him. The air seemed thicker, heavy with danger. But he pushed forward, heading for the med bay. the only place on the station that held even the slightest chance of saving her. Her weak voice whispered something against his chest. The words meant nothing to him, but the tone was clear: fear and hope. For the first time in years, the man felt his lonely path was no longer his own. He had made a choice. He was not alone anymore, and that choice would change everything. As the medbay doors opened with a rusty hiss, the lights flickered. Again, far away, deep in the station, another sound echoed. Metallic footsteps, steady and slow. Someone else was here. ***. The medbay was old, its machines covered in dust. Broken screens blinked with weak light, and the smell of rust filled the air. The man placed the alien girl on a narrow bed, her body shaking with every breath. For a moment, he just stood there, staring, his hands frozen. He had never been a doctor, never trained to heal, but right now, no one else was here. Only him, the girl, and the silence that surrounded them. He searched the shelves, pulling out boxes of medical kits. Most were outdated, their seals broken years ago, but a few tools still worked. Scanners, injectors, bandages. His hands trembled as he cleaned the wound. The girl flinched, her eyes half open, whispering sounds he couldn't understand. He spoke softly, even though he knew she couldn't know. His words, "Hold on, just hold on, I'll try." The scanner flashed red, internal bleeding, failing organs. He cursed under his breath. Human medicine would not be enough for her alien body. Still, he tried, attaching wires, starting the oxygen feed. The machine whirred, pumping weak air into her lungs. Her chest lifted slightly, and for the first time, her breathing steadied. But it wasn't enough. Her lips turned blue, her hands grew colder. The man leaned close, desperate. "Don't die." "Not here. Not now," he muttered. He thought of leaving, of telling himself it was hopeless. But her eyes opened again, glowing faintly in the dim light. They stared into him, full of pain, but also a quiet plea. In that moment, he knew he could not walk away. He remembered something. A small medical crate hidden deep in the storage bays. It had been traded to him long ago from a passing alien merchant. At the time, he never opened it. Thinking it useless, now it might be her only chance. He rushed out of the med bay, his footsteps pounding down the empty corridor. Every second felt heavy. Every shadow seemed alive. He reached the storage room, ripped open the crate. Inside were vials of glowing liquid, strange tools, alien devices he had never dared to touch. He grabbed everything and ran back. Her breath was weaker now, almost gone. His chest tightened as he set the alien tools on the table. He didn't know how they worked, but instinct and desperation guided him. He placed one of the glowing vials into the injector. The device hummed as if waking from a long sleep. He pressed it against her skin and pulled the trigger. A soft light spread across her veins, her chest lifted sharply. She gasped, a sound so fragile yet full of life. The man exhaled, relief flooding his heart, but it was not finished. Her wound still bled dark and strange. He used another tool, something like a silver clamp that pulsed with blue light. When he placed it near the wound, the bleeding slowed. The tissue seemed to knit together. He stared in disbelief as if watching a miracle. Within minutes, the girl's breathing grew stronger. Her eyes opened wider, glowing like twin stars in the dim med bay. She whispered again, her voice clearer. This time, the words still unknown, but the tone was soft, grateful. Her hand reached for his, weak but steady. He hesitated, then let her hold it. Her fingers were cold, her skin smooth but alien. For the first time in years, the man felt another's touch. Not mechanical, not empty, alive, fragile, real. Then suddenly the station groaned. A deep sound echoed through. The walls, metal shifting, doors locking. The man froze, his heart pounding. It was not the usual noise of the old structure. This was different, heavy, like footsteps, but not his own. The girl's eyes widened in fear, her lips moving quickly. She pointed toward the corridor, shaking her head. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Danger was coming. He turned off the machines, lowered. The lights quiet, he whispered, though she already knew. They both listened, their breath shallow, and then they heard it clearly. Footsteps, metallic, slow, echoing through the halls. Not one, not two, but many. Someone, or something, was inside the station, searching. The man's mind raced. If they found her, she was finished. And if they found him with her, he was finished too. His eyes moved across the medbay. There was a hidden hatch beneath the floor, a small crawl space he used long ago. It was tight, dark, and barely large enough for one person, but it might be the only chance. He lifted the girl again, her body lighter now, though still weak. Her hand clung to his shirt, her eyes begging him not to leave her. He carried her to the hatch, pulled it open, and lowered her inside. "Stay quiet," he whispered, though he knew she could not understand. Her glowing eyes looked up at him, frightened yet trusting. He closed the hatch just as the medbay doors hissed open. Shadows moved across the wall, long and sharp. Figures entered, tall and armored, their weapons glowing faintly, hunters. The man pressed himself against the corner, trying to stay unseen. His heart beat louder than the machines. One of the hunters spoke, his voice harsh. The words were alien, but the man caught one thing. They were looking for her. His breath caught, sweat ran down his back. The hunters spread out, scanning the room. One of them moved toward the bed. The sheets were still warm from where she had lain. The hunter paused, his helmet turning toward the shadows where the man hid. The man gripped the nearest tool, his knuckles white. He had never wanted a fight. But if it came now, he would not let them take her, not after what he had just done to save her, not after she looked at him with those desperate, glowing eyes. The hunter stepped closer, his weapon rising. The man held his breath, and then, from beneath the floor, came a soft sound. A cough, weak and fragile. The alien girl had given them away. ***. The sound was small, just a faint cough. But in the silent medbay it was louder than thunder. The hunter froze, his helmet turning sharply toward the floor. The man's chest tightened, his grip on the alien tool turning into steel. He prayed the girl would stay quiet, prayed the hunters would leave. But prayers rarely worked in places like this. The lead hunter raised a hand, and the others stopped. They moved slowly, scanning the room with glowing visors. One bent down, tapping the floor with a long, sharp blade. The sound of metal striking metal echoed through the medbay. The man knew he had seconds, maybe less. He stepped out from the shadows before they could tear the hatch open. "Looking for something?" he said, his voice steady, though fear burned inside him. The hunters turned as one, weapons glowing brighter. The man raised his hand slightly, showing he was unarmed. "I live here alone," he continued. "No one else, nothing else." The leader tilted his head, studying him with cold silence. Then he spoke, harsh alien words that the man did not understand. But the meaning was clear. They didn't believe him. One hunter moved closer, grabbing his arm roughly. The man's jaw tightened, but he did not resist. If he fought now, he'd die, and so would she. The leader barked an order, and two hunters began tearing through the room, pulling open crates, smashing panels, scanning every corner. The man's mind raced. If they found the hatch, it was over. Then, from beneath the floor, he heard her whisper again. A voice soft, musical, trembling. Words he did not know. A language he had never heard, but even muffled, even broken, they carried something alive, something desperate. He closed his eyes for a moment, and then, shockingly, his mind caught a shape. Not of words, but of meaning. Help. That's what she was saying, not in his language, not in any human tongue. But his heart understood, his mind filled with the feeling of it. It wasn't speech alone, it was something else, like the words slipped past the ears and straight into the soul. The man looked up at the hunters. If she could reach him this way, could she? Reach them too? No, he realized. Her whispers were directed only at him. Some strange connection had formed, a bridge between her mind and his, fragile but real. The hunters grew impatient. One slammed a crate to the ground, another lifted the sheets from the med bed. The leader pointed to the hatch. The man's heart dropped. They knew. In seconds they would tear it open and drag her out. He acted before they could. "Wait!" he shouted, stepping forward. Every weapon turned to him. He raised his hands again, desperate. "I told you I live alone. That sound, it was me." He coughed loudly, forcing the sound. He bent over, clutching his chest, pretending to choke. "See? Just me." Sick. Nothing more. The hunters paused, their visors flickering as if scanning him. One moved closer, pressing a device against his chest. The man held his breath. The machine beeped. Reading his body signs, the hunter growled something low, shaking his head, but then strangely they stepped back. The leader motioned with his hand. For now they would leave. The hunters moved out, their heavy footsteps echoing down the hall. But not all of them. Two stayed behind, standing at the door, silent as statues, watching him. The man forced himself to breathe slowly. Only when the leader's voice called from the corridor did the two follow. The door hissed shut, leaving him alone again. He dropped to his knees, pulling open the hatch. The girl lay curled inside, her glowing eyes wide with fear. She reached for him instantly, trembling. Her lips moved again, soft words flowing like water. He shook his head, whispering, "I don't understand. I can't." But her eyes carried meaning deeper than words. And once again he felt the touch in his mind, like a hand brushing against thought itself. Danger. Her voice echoed inside him, though her mouth spoke a different tongue. "They will come back." His chest tightened. He nodded slowly, answering out loud, "Yes, I know." She blinked, tilting her head, then whispered again, her hand touching his arm. The sensation grew stronger, the connection clearer. This time he caught more. Images, feelings, flashes of fire, screams, metal ships in the sky, chains, hunters dragging her kind into cages. And then, this station where she had crawled to hide, he gasped, pulling back, his head spinning. She collapsed weakly against him, exhausted from the effort. He held her gently, his mind racing. So she had fled from them. She was a survivor of something brutal, and now she was tied to him in a way he could not explain. Her strange language wasn't only sound, it was thought. A bridge between human and alien. A bridge that the hunters must never discover. The station groaned again. Far away, he heard the hunters searching another level. The girl looked at him, her lips trembling. "Hide," the feeling whispered in his mind. But he shook his head, whispering back, "No, we can't just hide, not forever." For the first time, her glowing eyes softened. Her hand gripped his, and a single word formed clear in his mind. Together. The man swallowed hard, staring into her fragile face. Somehow, in this broken station, in this moment of fear, he realized his lonely path was no longer his, and the language she spoke was not strange anymore. It was the beginning of something dangerous, and something that might change them both forever. The corridor outside suddenly lit up with a red alarm. A voice crackled through the station speakers. Alien words, sharp and commanding, but he didn't need translation to understand. They were sealing the exits. ***. The red alarm light pulsed across the corridor. The steel walls glowed with each flash, painting the station in blood-like colors. The man held the alien girl close, her weak body trembling against his chest. He could hear the heavy footsteps again, this time closer, this time faster. The hunters were no longer searching slowly. They knew their prey was here. The man set her down gently on the medbay floor. "You can't move much, can you?" he whispered. Her glowing eyes blinked and her head shook weakly. She tried to rise, but her wound pulled her back down. Her voice came out in that strange language again, soft, frightened. But he caught the meaning through their strange bond. They won't stop. They never stop. He clenched his jaw. She was right. These were not guards or simple patrolmen. They were hunters, trained to track, trained to capture, and if they captured her, there would be no mercy. Not for her. Not for him. The door hissed as shadows appeared through the glass window. He saw 3 of them approaching, their armored figures sharp and tall, their weapons hummed with pale blue light. The man quickly looked around the room, searching for something, anything. There was no escape hatch this time, no place to hide. He could only stand between her and them. He grabbed an old wrench from the tool rack. It was laughable compared to their glowing rifles, but it was heavy, solid, and it was all he had. His breath was steady, his heart loud. This was not about winning a fight, it was about time. Time to keep them away from her even for a few seconds longer. The door slid open with a sharp hiss. The hunters marched inside, their visors scanning the room. One of them barked a word in their guttural tongue. The man raised the wrench, standing. "Firm, this is my station," he said, his voice low. "You don't belong here." They didn't understand his words, but they understood the challenge. One hunter stepped forward, his rifle rising. The man swung the wrench with sudden force. The weapon clashed against the rifle, sparks bursting in the dim light. The hunter stumbled back, surprised by the speed of a solitary human. The other 2 moved in quickly. One slashed at him with a blade that extended from his arm. The man ducked, the blade slicing air where his head had been. He swung again, striking the hunter's leg. The alien growled but did not fall. Their armor was strong, too strong. The girl on the floor lifted her head weakly. Her eyes glowed brighter. The man suddenly felt her in his mind again. A rush of images, feelings, a whisper like a breath in his skull. Left. Now. He moved without thinking, and the blade missed him by inches, cutting into the wall instead. He stared at her, shocked. She had warned him, guided him, even half dying. She was reaching into his mind to keep him alive. The hunters grew angry, their movements sharper, faster. One raised his rifle again. This time the man knew he couldn't block it. The weapon charged, humming with deadly energy, but the girl screamed. It was not loud, not strong, but it cut through the room. Her eyes blazed with light, the rifle sparked, its energy pulse misfiring and burning out. The hunter dropped it, growling in frustration. The man seized the moment, slamming the wrench into the alien's chest. The impact pushed the hunter back into the wall, dazed, but not defeated. The man gasped for breath, sweat dripping from his face. He had never fought like this before, never wanted to. But here he was, standing against trained killers, all because of a girl he didn't even know. Yet something inside told him he could not stop now. Not while she was alive, not while she looked at him with that trust in her glowing eyes. The hunters regrouped, circling him. Their leader barked, another command. They were done playing, this time they would kill him quickly. The girl whispered again in his mind. "Run. Leave me. They want me, not you." He shook his head, gripping the wrench tighter. "Not a chance," he muttered. "I've been alone too long. Not again." The hunters lunged together. The man swung, blocked, rolled. But he was only human, his strength fading. The wrench was knocked from his hand, clattering across the floor. A blade pressed against his chest, stopping just short of his heart. The lead hunter leaned close. Through the glowing visor, the man saw nothing but coldness. This was the end. But then, a new sound filled the room. A loud alarm from deeper inside. The station. The hunters froze, looking toward the door. The man didn't know what it was, but he knew one thing. Something had distracted them. Something had bought him another chance. The hunters hissed to each other in their language. The leader pushed him back against the wall. One pointed at the girl, another at the corridor. They argued for a moment, their voices sharp and angry. Then the leader barked again. 2 hunters rushed out of the room toward the alarm. One stayed, weapon raised, guarding both him and the girl. The man's heart pounded. One enemy left, but that was still enough to finish them both. He glanced at the girl. Her eyes glowed, her lips moved silently, and then he felt it in his mind. Again, clearer this time, stronger. "Trust me." Her hand lifted, weak but steady. The air around her shimmered faintly. The lone hunter's visor flickered as if struck by static. He staggered, confused. The man didn't waste the moment. He lunged, grabbing the wrench from the floor, and with all the strength he had left, he swung. The hunter crashed to the ground, armor dented, visor cracked. The man stood over him, chest heaving. The girl collapsed back, her glow dimming. But her voice whispered one last time in his mind, "Not safe. More will come." The man looked toward the corridor where the other hunters had gone. The red light still pulsed, alarms still blared, and somewhere in the distance, a deeper, heavier sound echoed. Not just footsteps this time, but the rumble of something bigger, something worse. The hunt was only beginning. The hunter's body lay on the cold floor. Sparks flickered from the cracked visor, a faint hiss leaking from damaged armor. The man stood over him, his chest heaving, the wrench slipping from his hand. His arms trembled from exhaustion, his lungs burned with every breath. But he was alive, and so was she. He turned to the girl, still lying weakly against the wall. Her glow was dimmer now, her breath shallow. He rushed to her side, kneeling down. "You pushed yourself too far," he whispered. Her eyes half opened, her lips forming quiet words in her strange tongue. But even without sound, he felt it in his mind. "I had to. You would have died." He swallowed hard, staring at her fragile face. She was risking her own life to save him, and she didn't even know his name, a human who had lived years in silence. And yet here she was, reaching into his thoughts, binding herself to him in ways no one else ever had. He pulled a blanket from the med bed and wrapped it around her. Her skin felt ice cold beneath it, her body trembling. As he held her, he felt that strange warmth in his mind again. Not physical, not real, but a presence, like two hearts beating in the same rhythm. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. The alarm still echoed through the station, but the footsteps of the other hunters had faded. They were somewhere deeper now, distracted by the false alert. He didn't know how long before they returned, but every second mattered. He carried her back to the med bed and set her down gently. Her glowing eyes followed him, weak but steady. She tried to speak again. This time he focused, listening not to her mouth, but to the feeling. Slowly, carefully, the words began to form in his mind. "Name, what is your name?" The man blinked, surprised. No one had asked him that in years. He had almost forgotten how it felt to say it out loud. "Elias," he whispered, voice rough. Her lips moved again, repeating it softly. "Elias." It was broken, uncertain, but it carried warmth. He almost smiled, though the weight of danger still pressed on him. Then he asked softly, "And you? What's your name?" She blinked, her lips trembling. The word came soft and musical, almost like a song. It flowed through his mind clearer than her voice. "Sirenia, Sirenia," Elias repeated, tasting the sound. She closed her eyes, a faint smile touching her pale lips. For a moment, the alarms, the hunters, the danger, all of it faded. There was only the two of them. A human who had walked alone for too long, and an alien girl who had been hunted, broken, and left to die. But the yow. Silence did not last. The station groaned again, louder this time. From the walls came the hiss of pressure shifting, and through the speakers, a voice growled in the hunter's tongue, sharp, angry, commanding. Sirenia's eyes widened, and her thoughts rushed into his mind. "They found the ship. They know we are here." Elias clenched his fists. He couldn't fight all of them, not with a wrench, not with his bare hands. But maybe, just maybe, together they could survive. He looked at her, at the bond glowing faintly in her eyes. "Can you still guide me?" he asked softly. Her head tilted, confused. He touched his chest, then his temple. "You, in here. Can you still help me?" She closed her eyes, breathing weakly, then nodded. "Yes, but it hurts." Her voice in his mind was faint, trembling. He reached for her hand, holding it firmly. "Then don't do it alone. We'll fight together." Her glow brightened faintly at his words, her eyes locked on his, and for the first time, he felt not only fear in her, but trust. Deep, fragile, but real. A bond forming stronger than before. Suddenly, a crash echoed down the corridor. The hunters were back, their voices loud. Elias looked around desperately. The medbay would not protect them again. They needed a place to hide or a way out. Serenya's eyes flashed, and suddenly he saw it. Not with his own eyes, but through her mind. An image, clear as day. The lower levels of the station. A hidden passage, forgotten and dark, leading to the old cargo bay. It was dangerous, unstable, but it led to a ship, a broken ship, but maybe their only chance. Elias gasped, shaking his head. "You're showing me this?" She weakly nodded. "Bond, you see what I see?" The door shook as hunters pounded on it. Elias grabbed her, lifting her into his arms again. This time, her head rested against his chest, not in fear, but in trust. He whispered softly as the door groaned. "Hold on, Serenya, just a little longer." As he carried her out of the medbay, the bond pulsed stronger in his mind. He could feel her thoughts guiding him. Left. Stairs. Quiet now. It was not perfect, but enough to stay one step ahead of the hunters for the first time in years. Elias felt like his path was no longer empty. It was shared. Danger surrounded them. Death followed close behind. But in the midst of it, a strange connection bound them together. A human and an alien. 2 lives, 1 bond. As they reached the dark stairwell, a shadow moved at the bottom. Not a hunter, not a machine, but something bigger, heavier, waiting for them. The bond in his mind shivered with her fear, and one word echoed clear as ice: beast. ***. The stairwell was dark. Rust dripped from the walls, and the air smelled of oil and dust. Elias held Serenya close, her faint glow the only light guiding him. But at the bottom of the stairs a shadow moved, heavy and slow. The floor vibrated with its steps. It was not like the hunters. It was bigger, unshaped, alive. Serenya's grip tightened on his shirt. Her eyes widened, her lips moving quickly. In her strange tongue through the bond, Elias felt her fear sharpen like a blade. "Beast, their hound," she whispered into his mind. His stomach twisted. If the hunters had brought a beast with them, it meant they were desperate. And the beast's purpose was simple: sniff, track, kill. The creature stepped into the faint glow of her eyes. Its skin was black and rough like stone. Its arms long, ending in claws that scraped sparks from the steel. Its head twisted as it sniffed the air, and then its many eyes blinked open at once, glowing red in the dark. It had found them. Elias backed up the stairs, his breath quick and shallow. The beast let out a low growl that shook the walls. Serenya whispered sharply in his mind, "Run, cargo bay, fast." Her fear pushed into his chest, but also direction. A path. He turned and sprinted, clutching her tight. The beast roared and charged, metal shattering under its claws. Elias dashed through a corridor half collapsed by rust. Pipes hissed steam as he shoved past. Every step the beast took was louder, closer. It was faster than he expected. But Serenya's voice in his head pulled him left, then right. Every turn guided by flashes of her memory. Old maps of the station she had seen when she crawled through it in hiding still. Elias knew he couldn't outrun it forever. His arms ached carrying her. His lungs burned. The beast crashed behind him, smashing through walls like paper. The sound of hunters echoed from another hall. They were closing in too. Between the hunters and the beast, there was no escape. Then Serenya's hand pressed against his chest. Her glow brightened faintly. He felt her voice in his mind, not words but a strong command. "Stop!" He skidded to a halt, confused. The beast roared closer. The hunters' voices shouted down the corridor, and she whispered again, "Trust me." Her eyes flared bright, and suddenly the corridor shook. Lights flickered, machines hummed awake. Elias felt a surge through the walls. The beast stopped mid-charge, its red eyes blinking. It growled, confused, sniffing the air as if the trail had vanished. Serenya had done something, hidden their scent, hidden their presence. Elias stared at her in disbelief. You can control the station?" he whispered. She shook her head weakly. "Not control, only touch. Only for a moment." Her glow dimmed again, her strength fading, but the beast stumbled back, roaring in confusion. It smashed a wall instead, turning down the wrong path. The sound of its claws moved away, deeper into the station. Elias exhaled hard, sweat dripping down his neck. "All right," he muttered. "All right, we still have a chance." He pushed forward, running through the last hallway toward the cargo bay. The doors loomed ahead, old and rusted. He slammed the panel, and after a painful groan, they opened. The cargo bay stretched wide and dark. Broken crates and shattered ships lay in silence. Dust floated in the pale light that leaked through cracks in the walls. At the far end stood a ship, old, scarred, half buried under debris, but its frame was strong, its engines untouched. Serena's voice trembled in his mind. "That one, we can fly." He carried her inside, setting her gently in the pilot's chair. The ship's systems flickered weakly, panels coated in dust. He sat down at the controls, pressing buttons, pulling switches. The engines coughed, lights blinked, but the ship remained still. Come on, he growled. The hunters' voices echoed from the hall behind them. They had followed the beast's trail back, and now they were almost here. Serena lifted her hand, touching the panel. Her glow flowed through the controls like a spark. The ship hummed, screens flickering alive. Elias stared, stunned. You're part of this?" She closed her eyes, whispering, "Not mine. My people's." "I remember." The ship shuddered, its engines whining as they prepared to wake. But heavy footsteps thundered at the cargo bay doors. The hunters were here, their weapons glowing as they charged. Elias gritted his teeth, his hands gripping the controls. "Hold together, just hold together." The engines roared, dust shaking from the ceiling. The hunters raised their rifles, firing into the ship's hull. Bolts of light ripped through metal, sparks showering the cabin. Elias slammed the launch lever forward. The ship groaned, its thrusters igniting. With a deafening roar, it tore free of the ground. The hunters staggered back, their shouts lost in the blaze. The ship blasted through the bay doors. Metal shattered as they burst into open space. The stars filled the window, endless and cold. Elias gasped for air, sweat dripping. They had done it. They had escaped. But as he turned to Serena, his relief vanished. Her glow flickered weakly, her body slumping in the chair, her eyes closed, her hand slipping from the panel. "Serena," Elias shouted, reaching for her, her voice whispered faintly in his mind. "Safe, for now." But not for long. The stars stretched around them, but on the scanners, new signals appeared. Dozens of hunter ships, rising from the void. They had escaped the station, but the true chase had only begun. ***. The ship shook as it tore. Through the black void, engines screamed, panels rattled, sparks danced across the floor. Elias gripped the controls with white knuckles. Behind him, Serena slumped weakly in the co-pilot's chair, her glow dim but still alive. On the scanner, red dots lit up one by one, dozens of hunter ships forming a net around them. Elias cursed under his breath. "They won't let us go, not after all this." His voice cracked, not from fear but from rage. After years of walking alone, he had finally found something. Someone. And he wasn't going to let them take her. Serena stirred, her hand trembling as it touched his arm, her eyes half open, glowing faintly in the dim cabin. Through the bond, her voice whispered, "You can't fight them all. We must be smart." Elias nodded quickly, forcing his hand steady. "Then tell me how. Because I'm not letting you go." She closed her eyes, her thoughts brushing into his mind. Flashes of maps, coordinates, a safe place hidden deep in the stars. Her people's refuge, far and secret. If they could reach it, the hunters would lose the trail, but it was far, farther than the ship's fuel could carry. Elias checked the gauges. The engines were old, the power low. They could make a jump, maybe two, but not enough to reach her people. His jaw clenched, then he saw it. Asteroids, a drifting field of broken rock just ahead. He smiled grimly. "We don't need to outrun them. Just outsmart them." The hunters closed in, their weapons glowing bright. Bolts of blue light streaked past, rocking the ship. Alarms wailed, metal tore, sparks showered the cabin. Serenia cried out softly, her glow dimming further. Elias shouted, "Hold."
On!
He dived the ship into the asteroid field. Rocks tumbled around them, massive shadows spinning in the void. The hunters followed, but their large ships struggled to turn. Elias weaved through narrow gaps, engines screaming, chunks of stone scraped the hull, but he pushed harder. Every move guided not only by his hands, but by faint whispers in his mind. Serenia's voice. Left. Now right. Steady. Together, human reflex and alien instinct carried them deeper. One hunter ship clipped a rock and exploded in blue fire. Another slammed into stone, shattering in silence. Elias gritted his teeth. 2 down, 20 more to go, but the ship was failing, alarms blaring louder. Smoke filled the cabin, panels cracked. The hull couldn't take much more. Elias glanced at Serenia. She was pale, trembling, but her eyes met his. One last trick, she whispered in his mind, her hand pressed against the console. Her glow surged, flowing into the ship itself. Lights flared, engines roared with sudden strength. The ship responded like it was alive. Elias gasped, staring at her. "You're burning yourself out. Don't." But she only shook her head. "For freedom. For you." The ship leapt forward faster than before. It sliced through the asteroid field, weaving with impossible precision. Hunter ships fired wildly, missing every shot. Elias felt her guiding his hands, moving with him as one, man and alien. Bound together for the first time, he wasn't just piloting. They were together. At the far edge of the asteroid field, a massive rock split open, revealing a hidden tunnel of stone. Serenia's voice filled his mind, stronger than before. "Their safe passage, take it now." Elias pulled the controls hard. The ship dived into the tunnel, hunters crashing against the walls behind them. Explosions lit the void, red dots vanishing from the scanner one by one. At last, silence. The ship broke free from the tunnel. Stars stretched before them, wide and endless. Elias slumped against the seat, gasping for air. His body shook, but his heart beat steady. They had survived. He turned to Serenia. Her glow flickered weakly, her head falling to the side. He caught her hand, gripping it tight. "Stay with me. Please stay," he whispered. Her lips parted, a faint smile touching them. Her voice brushed through his mind. "Together. We made it." He leaned closer, his forehead against hers. For a moment, nothing else mattered. Not the hunters, not the broken ship, not the endless stars. Only the bond between them. Fragile, strange, but unshakable. The scanners beeped softly. No more hunter ships in range, for now they were free. Elias exhaled slowly. "New dawn, huh?" he muttered, almost smiling. He looked out at the stars, a lonely man no longer. Beside him, Serenia rested, alive. And together they drifted toward a future unknown. As the stars stretched before them, Serenia's glow brightened faintly. Her voice whispered one last time in his mind, "This is only the beginning. They will come again." Elias looked out into the void, his jaw set. "Then let them come."